Hey, welcome back to Vice Grip Garage. A guy is thrashing on this gorgeous 1968 Chevrolet Nova. It's a Yanko tribute, kind of a resto mod build, and I've got to have this thing done by December 2nd. And this week I'm going to be doing some needed maintenance. Rear axle, transmission, engine. And speaking of engine, we've got this thing stripped down right now. I've got to reassemble that, but with better parts. Valve cover, coil brackets, coils, Holley intake, valley cover. We got sensors, doodads, whatnots, throttle body, basically everything. Get this prepared for wiring with the Terminator X. We've got a ton of work to do, so let's get at it. So while a guy's got this thing up in the air, I thought, you know what, let's go through all the fluids and make sure this is 100%. I'm pretty positive every aspect of this car has been touched, but, you know, trust but verify, one feller once said. And I'm sure whoever wins this hopefully is going to absolutely drive the wheels off of the thing and probably drive it home. So as a reminder, we're giving this car away now through December 2nd. All you got to do is go to vicegripgarage.com. Snag you up anything, a back rake, a jacket, forehead awning, sticker, cups, lanyards, whatever. Every $5 you spend gets you one entry for a shot to win this bad boy, and $15,000 cash goes along with it. So let's start in the rear end. This top that off. We're gonna do the same with the M20. Make sure that thing is nice and full. We're gonna do an oil change, basically get all the bottom side stuff done. Then we'll bring the car down and dig into that engine. I've got some goodies. We're gonna add some horsepower. We're definitely going to pick up the looks, and we're going to clean up that engine bay, because if you remember, this thing looked like a mess. Did not match everything else going on. What do I need? Ratchet and some Earls. Okay. So a guy's going to pop this plug out on the rear end here, and I should be able to stick my pinky in there if it'll fit and feel oil right there. If not, we're going to add oil until it starts to spill out. We know that this is a posi unit based on the burnout we did, so we'll have to make sure that we add additive or the oil has additive for the posi. So let's get that off. Okay, this one did pop free. A lot of these are super stubborn, but this axle's been, looks like it's been powder coated. I cleaned very well and powder coated or something. I can see the stampings on it and everything really clearly. Got this here just in case she pours out. Nothing. Finger test. Oil is right there. See that? So that is actually good. We don't need to do anything here. If I can get coordinated enough to put the plug back in. There we go. And we'll do the same. We'll slide forward and do the same on the transmission. It was quiet. It sounded quiet, but let's just make sure it's full on oil as well. And this bad boy is going to have a 3/8 Allen on the side here. Pop this out. Same thing. Should have oil right at the bottom of the hole there. Nothing leaking out yet. And finger test. Nothing. It's in there, but it's low. So let's go ahead and add some. Valvoline absolutely nailed it when they came out with the Flex Fill. I think everyone calls them squeezy bags. Mechanic's first nightmare, emptying gear oil containers, but this really simplified that whole process. Just don't be squeezing the bag when you take the top off. Ask me how I would know that. Whoops. Okay, oh wow, that was pretty low actually. Okay, it's starting to run out, and then we'll take this, jam it on. Put a cap on this, save it for something else. Okay. Last but not least, we'll go ahead and change the engine oil over down here. No idea when that was done last. But we'll go ahead and put some good stuff in there. And get rid of this filter and put in a Wix. Yep. Drop it all, buy one! Oh yeah, it's still just me. Well, that's the way she goes. Wonder what Mark Chestnut's doing today. Yeah, I don't know either. All right, boop. Oh, yeah, she was due for an oil change. Okay, sure, looking good. Tie rod ends are new. Everything looks really sharp. This stuff wasn't even on my windshield list, but again, I want to make sure she's on the up and up, or the down and up, left to right, side to. Okay, enough of that. Toss the bolt back in. Slide this over for the fill tray. Yep. Okay. Let that run for a second. I'm gonna go get the new one, fill that up, get it ready to stab in. Come on now. Come on off there. There it is. And we're putting a Wix XP back up in her. Yep. There we go. I think I put too much JB Weld on that. Whoops. Okay, now, before we bring the car down, don't forget to write the date and or the miles on your stuff, fellers. How are we gonna know what's going on? Filled. And the date. And I'm gonna run to the back and I'm gonna put checked and the date. So the next feller or fellette, they crawl under here, they go, oh, okay. I think a guy's gonna go with the old Valvoline high mileage. We'll just go 1030, good middle of the road. I don't really know how many miles the engine has on it. And I'm also going to add, just for Securitas, in good measure as this is, some Hyperlube zinc. More so for hydraulic flat tappet systems, cams, but it does help engine parts jive together as a whole. So, I'll dump that in. Sure. Quick way to do an oil change, just tear her down, dump it right in. Yeah, a splash out of this one. Sure. Heard it hit the pan. It's going somewhere. All right, let's talk about what we got going on now. Well, here's where we left off on the top side, fellers and fellas. Pretty stripped down. I wanted to get it to about here, so a guy could go in and get all the parts and pieces on the way that I think we might need to get this put back together, clean everything up, make it look much better, but also perform much better. And we got to do this in a specific order, or we're going to be doing a lot of this work over again, and that's not, you know, we ain't got the time for that. So I think we should start with sensors. Let's figure all of that out. We got to change our water temp, which is currently back here running to a little rinky gauge in the dash, and our oil pressure, which is this old school plastic line. Even if I was going to keep it that gauge, I would switch that plastic line, which they always fail, and move it to a brass one or a copper. But we're going to get rid of that and put in an actual oil pressure or PSI sensor and run it through the terminator. So we'll have everything in one place, basically. We've got to figure out our pinning and voltage for our cam sensor. This is a 24, and I'll kind of walk you guys through that, figuring that out. And then we've got to look at vacuum. What kind of vacuum do we need? Because we're going to have to go through our intake manifold, the lower half, and get all of that set up and prepared. And once we get through all of that, we can start putting pieces on this. I've got a Holley intake. We're going to delete the NOx sensors. I've got some beautiful valve covers, some new coils, a motion throttle body, and start putting this back together. And hopefully we can have it 100% complete, ready to wire. So let's dig in on sensors here. Welcome to Derek's I Have No Idea What's Happening. Today, I have no idea what's happening. No, we're going to go through the Terminator X high level, do a little bit of planning here. Because look, the last thing we want to do is, for example, put the intake manifold on and go, oh, I forgot a vacuum port for the brake booster, or whatever it may be. So I'm trying to just go through everything in the old brain bucket up here, fight with what's left, and lay this out. And I want to show you guys that if you feel confident enough to, for example, tackle a Holley sniper kit, you can do a Terminator. And I know this looks really intimidating, but it's essentially almost the exact same thing as a sniper. Everything is plug and play. You have all the same exact sensors. The only difference is you're plugging in injectors, okay? Those are built into your TIBI, your Terminator blocker injection system. The interface is right here, or the computer, instead of in the sniper, but it all plugs right in. You have the same handheld thing in the Wizards. It's pretty similar. So don't look at these like they're systems you can't do. If I could figure them out, you can figure them out. So let's walk through some of this. Coolant temperature sensor, here it is, bingo. Probably one in the engine, we'll check. We'll move that over to the Terminator. Oil pressure, this is just standard. Got it at O'Reilly. Oil pressure should plug in, we're gonna verify. Camshaft sensor, we need a cam sensor. This is a 24X. I pulled it out of the engine so you can see it. And all this does is count 24 unique pulses per 360-degree rotation of the engine. Now there is a 60-2, Holley calls it a 58X, or GM. That would be a gray sensor. Typically, those are located at the front of the engine. If it's black and towards the back, it's a 24, and that's what we have. Now, what we can do, just to make sure we're tracking right, is find, well, here it says right here, cam. Well, does this plug into this? Okay, well, that seems like that'll work, right? What else we got? Map. That's a good conversation. We don't have a map sensor. I don't plan on putting in a map sensor, but the great thing is the Terminator has a map built right into the computer itself. So all we have to do is run manifold vacuum over to that line, plug it in, done. And we can ignore this cord. If you want to put a map sensor in, you can. Plug it in, you're done. Let's see, let me go through this quick. We've already got O2s in the car. We only need one for this setup. This is for a fuel pressure if you want to run that. CTS, coolant temp sensor. Snaps right in. Okay, that's just the GM sensor. And What else we got here? Injectors, that's a separate harness that plugs right into that. These are knock sensors, which we're not going to be using. Boy, this is pretty simple. TPS, fuel, cam, coolant. The rest of this is like battery. We've got a line in here that will run the fuel pump for us. Okay, so I think we're good. The other big project we're gonna have, well, not big project, it is a project. Theodore's chasing mice in the old silver rattle back here. We need a fuel pressure regulator. The other one was using the stock style intake with the stock style fuel rails and the stock style fuel pressure regulator. Yeah, I know, I'm talking about it right now. So we're gonna move over to this Holley 12-846, of course, and modulate our fuel pressure that way. Hey buddy, you wanna hang out? Okay, okay, less claws. I also picked up a relay here. This is just a 2-channel relay, and we can run the fan off of that if need be, because I haven't quite determined what that is. But this is all on the wiring side. Right now, we're just doing the mechanical side, which is adding the sensors and putting the sensors in. You ready? All right, let's get to work. Where you been? So back here, I've got that sensor back in, and now we'll work on the oil pressure. This is an adapter that takes it from that big GM sensor I just showed you to an 1/8" NPT, which runs, you know, your traditional oil fitting, or you can take a transducer pressure sensor thingy. For Holley, fuel and oil are the same. So you can run this in, like, if you want to see transmission line pressure or oil pressure or fuel pressure, that's going to screw in here as well. I'm actually going to go this way because the harness is already set to click right into this, and I don't have to change the fitting on that. So I'm going to goop this up, drop this in, and then we're going to test fit the intake manifold on here with this back there to make sure we have clearance. Stuffing things, German shepherds, rotten eggs. All right, so this should, there we go. This guy, we'll snip that. We can pull that back through the firewall. Going full confidence, taped it up and everything. You know, that way when the manifold interferes with this, we gotta take it back out again. How tight is tight? Till your elbow pops? Boy, it's like 28 foot-pounds. That's 32. We can't go any more than that. So that's in, and just real quick here, I got to looking. Sure enough, there's the original coolant temperature sensor. We're gonna leave that in. It's probably better than any repop we can get anyway, and we don't gotta dump coolant all over the ground. So I think at this point, before we start throwing things on here, let's get the valley covered up, take care of that so we're not dropping anything in the engine here, and then we could start laying out plans for our harness, test fit the intake, and start moving forward here. So here's the old cover with the knock sensor provisions in it, and here is the one that I purchased to take its place, and it deletes on those. I was going to throw this on the car, and then I remembered something. Met a really nice feller at the Iola car show and swap meet this last time, and he said, "Derek, I got something for you, and I made it. Check this out." Had to do some digging, but I found it. Look at that. Vice Grip Garage. And I promised this feller I'd use it, and what a perfect application this is. So we're going to put this on instead. It's not quite going to match everything else going on the engine, but I'd much rather have a custom piece made by a fan on here any day than worry about matchy-matchy. Here we go, get some hardware. this might be another piece. This one's quite a bit thicker. It's a nice stock. I have to see if that clears. Before I get all of these screwed in, let's test that out fast. So we can test fit the cover and that sensor at the same time. It's looking flat. And let's see, with the hole there, I can reach. Yes, that should be okay. Great. Well, that looks nice. I forget the gentleman's name, but thank you so much. That's really cool. The other thing I was thinking of here is the ignition harnesses, the coil harnesses, each need to be grounded to the heads. So this one's right again the firewall, but I got a lug on this side, and I think I can reach this one. Grounding point right here. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is if we put the intake on, bolt all that up, and then we're trying to reach behind the heads to ground it, it would be a mess. So I'm just trying to think ahead as far as I can. Speaking of thinking ahead, we got to work on the manifold a little bit before we plop that on. So as you saw a minute ago, this is the intake we're going to be using, or the bottom or base plate of it. It's the Holley low ram intake, and as you can see, they flow well. This is going to give us a huge performance increase and really clean up the engine bay there. That plastic stuff, doodads, it's going to go away. We'll have nice tidy black fuel rails on the side with some new injectors as well. Now, before we plop this on, we've got to figure out our vacuum provisions, and on the back here you can see there's 4 holes. One is a bolt hole for a sensor, and this is a sensor opening made for an O-ring. We're not going to be using that. And then above that, we've got 2 threaded positions here already. I would like to use the top one for our brake booster. The one below that, we can use that for our map sensor, which is going to go right through the firewall into the computer. But that leaves this one down here. I don't have a sensor to plug in, but I can tap this really quick and just put a pipe plug in. So that's where we're going to start, is by, whoa, that's hot, is by putting that on the charger. We're going to tap this thing. How can I get this to stay put? I guess like that. At least I found my impact. All right, so we've got this fitting here, which should, yep. And looking it over, we'll put that pretty much straight up. And then this intake will come up like that. Leave us room to clamp that hose on for the booster. And then this will be for our map sensor. I think that's MPT. Yeah, there we go. So that'll go in there. That might be tight. I'm gonna walk over and set this on right now. Actually, we might need a 90. And then we're going to tap this one down here and put in a plug. And that will finish up the back of our intake here. Oh yeah, I was gonna test this. I already forgot. So we got plenty of room to come off with the line. I just didn't want it to get kinked, and we'd probably shoot right through there. So that'll work. Guys got one shot at this basically. So let's not mess this up. Oh, easy. Seat. Oh yeah, she's biting now. that's going to work just fine. Okay, those top two came tapped, and that's the one, the bottom one there, I just tapped that one. So now we should be able to plug everything in we need to the manifold here and have it ready to go on. Boom. That's what that'll look like. So now that we got this figured out, all the pipe laters and whatnot, we've got to get the intake gaskets in. It's this little O-ring here, and we press it into this machine surface, and it'll end up looking like that. Now, kind of tricky, because you can't just take your thumb and start running these in. You'll actually stretch this. So you've got to kind of find your corners first, kind of loosely just lay them in here. And then after it's in, then we can come back and kind of just work our way around and start pushing this into place. We don't want it stretched out. We want the same thickness all the way around. So give me a few minutes, I'll get all these pressed into place. We're getting close to putting this on the car though. Look like an engine again. Well, there we go. All of them are installed. One last thing I want to do is actually hang some 1/4-inch line off of here and get a hose clamp on that now so I don't have to fight that behind the intake. And then we'll clamp this one on before we put the top on, I think. Okay, get all the rags out of here. Don't want to forget that. Might not run very good that way. There we go. And I can take this guy, I'm going to feed the vacuum line through the firewall. That's for the map sensor. And there we go. In place. Now we come in here and just run hardware on. And I do want to snug this up first. Then we'll move on to the top. We got to put a gasket in there. Yep. What the torque specs is. My gut says all of it, but maybe I should look it up. It's probably 10 to 12 pounds. Or is it inch pounds? I don't know what's happening. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Okay. All right, all this is torqued down. Same thing with this gasket is we can't get too pushy. I'll lay this in, and at the end here, actually maybe in a couple spots to keep it in place, I'm going to put a little bit of RTV on there. There we go. Okay, and then I'll come in with a knife or razor and cut it to fit. It's looking like Leatherman. Right there. Okay, now I'll go get some silicone. There we go. This stuff is getting so expensive. Oh, Theodore's here to help. What do you think, buddy? Oh, really? Ouch. Oh. Why do you gotta dig them in like that? At least put a saddle on me if you're gonna use me like a horse. Yeah, I know. It hurts. Does that look pretty good? Okay, I'll take the purr as a yes. The sound you hear is we're finally getting a good rain. We needed it. This intake's actually made more so for a boost, but they work great in situations where you want a little bit of hood clearance. Whoop! I just scratched the underside of the hood. Sorry about that. Whoever the winner is, my bad. Maybe I didn't. Oh, I think that was rubbing on the plastic. That might be me though. There we go. Get that hardware. And we've got a problem already with the pulley system. Great. How are we going to get around that? That's no bueno. Well, that is 100% my mistake. Unfamiliarity. We're in a little bit of a different territory. I don't play with LSs a lot. And I really wanted the low just for some clearance. Clean this up in here too. But the throttle body is definitely going to collide with my idler pulley that runs up to the charger whirler. And this is a slippery slope. Now I've got silicone and this is tapped. I can't return this intake. Could we eventually use it? Absolutely. So I've either got to find a different intake. They do have a fabricated intake. It's black. It's a little bit taller, but the throttle body comes off straight. Or I've got to figure out how to move all the accessories. I'll probably look at both, figure out which one is cheaper and going to look better in the long run. For now, just putting a couple pieces of hardware in here so this doesn't move around and we can keep ourselves from dropping any junk into the engine. For now, we're going to turn our attention to the valve covers. We can get those on. We can assemble our coil brackets, get our coils mounted in here. There's still a lot of other stuff we've got to do. And later on, I'll ponder on a resolution on that thing. So just doing a little bit of research. There's definitely kits out there like CVF Racing that have everything we would need to move this around, but it's definitely going to be more affordable to change the intake out. But I'm going to sleep on it. For now, let's get this thing closed up. We don't want anything falling in there either. And we're going to be using these Motion Raceworks valve covers. You've seen these before. I've used them before. They're an incredible piece. Very, very well made. And the kit comes with everything. Covers, gaskets, hardwares, the oil fill cap, and these plug into here and integrate with their breather kit as well. So everything's going to play nice there. We'll get these plopped on and maybe we'll start working on a breather, unless it's going to get in the way of swapping the manifold. We can continue on with the coil packs and everything. Got the gasket laid in here. These should just set right on. Bingo. Grab some hardware. Here we go. Yeah. It's been a while since I practiced my yodeling. I feel like I gotta get back into that. Usually every Wednesday, but it's been a while. Just gotta go down the line here, snug all these Allen heads up. They come with a rubber O-ring and a washer already on them. There we go. Now it's really coming together in the looks department. So next we'll throw on these Motion Raceworks coil brackets, and these will work with almost every single kind of coil there is, with the exception of maybe one or two. But these will hold our MSDs just fine. So let's get this unpackaged and get them on. Probably do assembly here on the bench, since there's going to be quite a few spacers and bolts and nuts. These are the motion brackets. These are the coils we're going to go with. MSD, well, you get it from Holley. This is their LS2 3, 4, 7, 9, 12, 16, 49 billion 11D9er. 05 to 13 comes with all 8. Not only will this look a lot better, but obviously we're going to get a lot better performance out of this MSD than we would a stock style coil. Got to use a spacer on this to lift it up just a little bit, and then this bolt hole here and here is going to go onto the wings or the brackets that go to the valve cover itself. And obviously the heads are just flipped from one side to the other, so one will face this way on the drinker side, one will face forward on the captain side, and it'll look great. Well, while a guy assembles all of this, you get to sit back, relax, and listen to some kind of feeling smooth jazz. We got some rain going on outside, nice and cool. That ought to do it. Well, good morning. Guys out here bright and early. Gonna get right after the Nova again. Pressure's starting to kick in a little bit, gotta be honest. After we get all this physically reassembled, we've still got wiring to deal with. We've still got the interior stuff to deal with, the trunk. We've got to get this fired up. We have to tune it. We've got to shake it down. There's still a lot of work to do before one of y'all drives away with this thing. So let's jump right in today. And I think we should start figuring out our fuel system. We've got to add in a regulator. We've got fuel rails. We've got some lines to make up, injectors to put in, and all of that. Then we can switch gears and go back to, I think, our catch can system and all of that. And ignition. We got to finish that up as well. Let me find some parts, start laying this out. So the old fuel system was just a stock intake, throttle body, fuel rails. Has a pressure regulator built in right here. And since obviously that's going away, we've got to add one in now. So that'll be this guy right here. We've got 2 ends and a return. One will be blocked. Hopefully I've got that. But essentially, we come from the tank, from the tank through our filters in our pump. We come into a rail. It'll cross over in the front. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter which way. And then out the other rail, into the regulator, back to the tank. So we've got to do that as well. We have 2 lines down here. We could try to use what we can there, hopefully. The feed, which I've got to trace and figure out, will hopefully reach and pop right into the rail, and then we can cross it over in the front, come off on the return. And my idea is to mount this somewhere back there-ish, and then we've just got to come across and link in with our return, and that should
be pretty much it for the fuel system. We'll put a gauge in here as well, and we'll have to run that pump and adjust the pressure. And then once you set it, you can forget it. Well, whoever built the rig put a red zip tie on one of the lines, but then didn't put a zip tie on anything back here. So a guy gets to tear the fuel lines out again and retrace them. I could potentially bump this pump, but I'm by myself and fuel would just gush out of the car and I don't really know what that's doing. So I'm just going to trace it really quick. Okay, I traced it 3 different times, came up with the same answer. Red is feed right from the pump. Normally I do red for return just because it rhymes and it's easy to remember, and I just consistently do that on every vehicle, but nonetheless we've got to figure it out. Red is feed, so I could bring the car back down and let's start assembling this fuel system. So here's our fuel rails that came with the intake, and then they've got the mounting brackets and hardware here, and then these are the injectors I got through Holley as well. We're going to go ahead and put new ones in. And I'm going to have to find some fittings. We've got some O-ring fittings that are going to go on the ends of the fuel rails. At minimum, we can plop in the injectors and get these bolted into the intake. Then we can start planning all of our plumbing. Guy's got to hook his peepers in pretty close here because these look like, at first glance, they can go either direction. But when you put the bracket in, you have to get the orientation right so the injectors line up correctly. This way it would push them out at an angle. This way they'd be right over top of each other. So logos in seems to be the way to go. So I'm going to drop these brackets in, and they get both, depending on injectors are different heights. You get 2 sizes of brackets for that. I got some motor oil in here from 1947, and I'm just going to just a little bit on my fingers and rub the O-rings of the injectalizers before we into the over there. And that way it doesn't tear up the O-rings or anything like that. We don't want to hit the key and have fuel just spraying like, you know, my garden hose. Well, my garden hose has 47 splices and 19 pinholes. I just call it a soaker hose now. It's economical. Hey, the fuel system's starting to look like a fuel system. Got the injectors in, the rails are in, and the O-ring fittings on front and rear of the rails. Got the fittings on the front, that's kind of what it'll look like. We'll run a crossover underneath here. There's really nothing else that's got to go under there other than a steam kit I got to put in. This is the stock style steam kit. I might upgrade that, look a little bit better. And we've got to get that into the radiator or the water pump or something like that eventually. I was able to go ahead and snag in the feed line right into the back of the rail. That worked out perfectly, even had a 90 on it. Now we got to get this crossover done, cut a line there, and then we'll figure out where to hang the regulator, which is going to be over there somewhere. Got to think ahead once again, because I want to mount the Terminator X up high in the dash, so the regulator might actually end up being a little bit lower because I don't want hardware coming through. You know, I don't want the hardwares, you know, hitting each other, is what I'm saying. So we got to kind of play with that. I might have to hold the computer up on the inside, do some of that stuff. Using Earl's fittings and Earl's line, another product you can get right from Holley. So if you've never done an AN fitting, these used to intimidate me quite a bit, but they're actually very simple. The downside is they're spendy. But goodness, do they look good? and they're easy to work with, and you can always keep them around and even reuse them. But you just slide the collar onto your line, pick what kind of line you want to use. This is the style I always use. Oh no! Oh, this is why shiny stuff scares me. Anywhoos, you slip the collar on the line here, and this is the line I always use. And then all you have to do is just oil this up a little bit, lubricate it. They actually make, like Earl's has a fitting lubrication, but I just use engine oil or spit or grease off your boot. And then you just simply thread that into there, tighten it down, and you're done. And these come in 90s and 45s and 180s and pretty much anything and everything you can think of now. They used to be kind of hard to get everything you needed, 10, 15 years ago, but not anymore. So everyone kind of has their own way to do a end line. I like to terminate one side, put it in place, and then I can, run it however I want to run it. And I know the line is going to go to the bottom of the threads, which is right there. So that's how long I need it. Now I'll go get some electrical tape and wrap this, and the cut mark will be the center of the electrical tape. I cut it with the death wheel. It's quick, easy, fast. The heat burns the frays, which makes sliding the piece back on easier, and the tape holds everything together until you're ready to slide the cup on. And then all you have to do is just be sure to run some carb cleaner through the line or air and flush that out several times back and forth so you're not throwing a bunch of rubber into your fuel system. But it works super quick. Other people like using crimpers. They're like a cutter, like a bolt cutter almost, but they're made for line. Those work great too, but I've found that they crush the line a lot, and then I'm always fighting trying to get this back to round before I can slide the cup on. So I just do the death wheel way. Yes! Guy lost his little chuck pad screwy downer thing for my Milwaukee. So we gotta use a corded unit here. Give her a crick. Is that, yeah, that's how you combine really and quick together. We're gonna give her a crick. Just yes. Here. There we go. We've got a really nice clean cut. Now we need to take cleaner, clean this up. Just like that. Tart. Now a guy can snag in this front line. That. Rotate that around. Perfect. Can't smoke these on like I typically do with everything, because then you can't reuse them and they'll bite and mar up on you. There we go. Well, this is the big piece of our fuel system here, which is our pressure regulator. We're going to mount that with this guy like that. We're going to use this Earl's gauge. That'll plumb in right in the front. We can monitor our fuel pressure that way. And we'll have, let's see, this coming in off of the fuel rail. This is our return. That's low pressure side. That'll go back to the tank. And then we got to plug this side. I don't have a flat cap, unfortunately, but we can use that fitting and this cap. Not super jazzed about the blue cap, but that's what I got in stock, and it'll work just fine. So now we got to find a place to mount this thing that looks nice and gives us good access with our return and into this bad boy. Digging through my box of leftovers, I save everything. This is a old, I don't even remember what project this was on, but I've got a -6 cap, so if I could find another one of those fittings, We can use a black cap, or I've got the silver one, which definitely beats that blue one. Well, guys, got this all assembled, and this is what it's looking like right now with what I had in mind, which was placing it, you know, somewhere over there. But you always got to be thinking ahead. I know I've said that too many times, but we've got a catch can that's going to be coming across, and the best area to mount it is over there. Plus we have the computer at the Terminator X that needs to be mounted over there. So now you start thinking, well, where does your eye go right now when you open the hood? A little flash of yellow, you look over there, everything else is going to be black. Of course, the brake master is kind of an eyesore, and that wiper motor and some wiring there. And the reason I do that is, where can we hide this that it's not going to be a sore thumb? So I'm kind of thinking, leave that for the catch can. What if we put this right here? It's already busy. And the other big, huge benefit is the return line is the same length as the feed line, which is plugged in right there. Can a guy route it just a little bit differently to get another 4 inches out of it? And then I don't have to rerun that entire line or put a cheesy little barrel in to get more length out of it. That's just another fail point or a leak point. So I'm going to hook the return line in and then get this, you know, see how much movement I got. And then based on that, we'll set up our mount and get that popped in. But I think that'd be a nice little spot for it. Be clean, functional, and then we have some real estate over here for the catch can and filter. Well, sometime later I got a little bit of slack out of the return, got that plugged in, and look, it wants to live right there. So I'm gonna willy-nilly put the bracket on, make some marks, and we'll fasten this to the firewall right there. And then I just have to switch the cap to that side, come right off of here with the 90, right into there, and that is our fuel circuit. Should be good to go. Guys got the bracketry on the firewall there. I was able to self-taper those in, thankfully. I was starting to shake. Hadn't used one today yet. Snagged a couple in there. Just moving. Let's see, how am I doing this? Oh, I just put it on the one, I took it off. Moving the cap on this to the other side of the regulator here. And then we'll get this mounted up on the firewall. Just like that. Now before I tighten this, let's get the return line situated and tight. Yeah, I think we should do that. Yep. Not too tight, not too tight. Trying to get this line, the angle of the fitting. Oh, I want it. Still not perfect. There we go. And then the hardware, there's 2 screws that go through the bottom right into the regulator. And get a ranch dressing for the other one. Tighten it up. All right. See if my mashed potato stirring hand can get this bolt in. Not going very good. It is not. Things have escalated. Not happening. Can I fit my other hand in there? Yeah, but I can't turn it.
I got hoses and pipes and doodads galore. I think they took the whole cover of this wiper motor off just to fit that sliced up valve cover thing. Wonder if I can get one here in time. Okay. Oh, never see that again. Let's tighten this other one. Wow. Whose idea was it to put it here anyway, for Pete's sake? Can't even see it. Well, 4 months later, the fuel pressure regulator is in and it looks great. I'm glad I decided to spend the time struggling putting it in over there. A little bit tight, but I think in the long run it's gonna look really good. Now I've just gotta run a line from the drinker side fuel rail into the regulator, and that should do the fuel pressure system. We'll just have to adjust the pressure later on down the road when we're doing our pre-flight inspection. So guys played around with a few different fittings back here. Tried maybe like a 60 degree, push it more towards the firewall. Tried a 60 on here, all sorts of stuff. And I think I'm just gonna stick with a 90 and a straight. And all we gotta do is just turn this Wi-Fi hose into a solid state hose, and boom. And that should just clear us for our wiring harness, which will be coming through there. Adding this last fuel line in, and I'm gonna have the 90 back here kind of swing down. Leave a little bit of room for the harness. We can do that just by boop. Put a little pressure on it. Using the wrong wrench for the right fitting. Perfect. That'll work just fine. Just gotta take her easy. Okay, there we go. So starting on the sketch can, I know I want it to land over there, so I've got the fittings kind of just loosey-goosey on the valve covers. This one is really tight with the windshield wiper motor. I might have to loosen this. Ideally, I'd like to shoot it over the fuel rail, under through here, and then back, just to tuck it in and keep it clean. I'm gonna have to go dig through my fittings. If I could find a 60 or something that would come off more like this, that would be ideal, because then I could have two lines coming over here and put that can kind of off to the side over there where it's not just sticking out. The nice thing is they're really good looking and they're black, the same look as the valve cover there. So they're not an eyesore by any means, but if we can kind of get it down and over there, I think that'd be great. Well, a guy did and was able to find that fitting, and that's exactly what I was talking about. Now it's kind of parallel to like the hood. And then this guy here, the way this mounts gives us pretty much free reign to put it how we want. And I'm thinking sideways like this. Leave some room for that hood spring. We're gonna have one really short one. It'll be like a 2-inch hose because we got another fitting to go on there. And then the other one we still got to fish up over there, but that should work nice. Guy's hand can fit underneath and empty it when need be. Filter goes on top. Be nice and clean. Making my fitting up for the catch can. This is a good example. See how that's egg shaped? I got to work this back now. This was cut with one of those slicers. I got to work this back into round before I can get my fitting on. Well, this is probably the shortest fitting in history. About 1/8 of an inch in between there, but this is a solid motor mount, doesn't matter. That'll come off the valve cover. So I'm gonna pipe this in, screw this in then, and then level it up, make some marks, attach this to the firewall,
and then we can figure out the routing for the longer one over there. Okay, let's see. Snag this onto this end. Tighten that up. Snag it onto that end. There we go. Wow, that's gonna look great. Clean. Let me get a marker. Make some marks. He stopped loving her today. He did keep some letters by his bed. Dated 1960 something, is what I think he said. There we go. Take the back off again. Yeah. Okay, right there. We got bondage. They bodywork the firewall there. Perfect. Get some hardware and a helping hand, and we'll bolt that thing in. Put this on. Bentley came in to help me. We're going to use some Allen socket caps, some nice black hardware out here, so he can hold that. I'm going to crawl in the car and torque it on at 700 foot-pounds. We'll just do one at a time so I know which one you're holding. There you go. Whoops. Here. Oh. Glad Jessica took this seat out. Okay. Whoops. So many wires in here. Ready? Okay, next one. Okay. How about that? Do a bottom one, please. Yeah, there's a bracket in here I gotta take out. All right, ready? Okay, bottom one again. Gotta screw it in. It looks like if you screw it, it'll go. Give her. Let me loosen the other. That help? Jiggle it a little bit. There you go, it's going. Okay, why don't we take this bracket off before we do the other one? Can you give me a Phillips screwdriver, please, sir? Thank you. Taking out this old computer mount, which is now in the way. One more screw. Okay, now can you get the other one in? Bring me the drill on that bit, please. On the toolbox. It's got to waller it a little bit. Waller edge complete. Okay, now try her. Oh yeah. Bottom one. Other bottom one. Top one. Top right. Perfect. Thank you, son. Got one end of the line hooked up to the can. Gonna loosen this wiper motor with the Jessica extension. She really got a kick out of this thing. And if I can lift it just a little bit, I might be able to sneak that fitting around. Really make this look sharp. It could work until that motor comes on it, though. Then I'm just leaving a mess for someone else to fix. But I don't like that. That it is. So, gotta get some tape, measure that up. And then here's with the death wheel. Look how absolutely clean and precise that is. Just really have to make sure to clean it. This is the last line. Gonna get that fitting knocked in, and then I gotta snake it through this way with the straight fitting. I got a plan on how to route that, kind of hide it, tuck it back in. And if it goes well, it's gonna look just like it does now. And the ice cube on the bourbon. Here's the fill tray. After some hand smashing and other various techniques, got the lines ran just how I wanted them. Wow, sounds like a percussion setup in here. There we go. Well, the catch can is done, and man, this engine bay has never looked better. It's just really clean looking, neat, organized, and has a much more aggressive look, definitely over that frumpy stock plastic and everything everywhere like that. And it just looks like more muscle carish. You know what I mean? Like it'll actually do something. And don't get me wrong, the engine ran pretty darn good in the stock configuration. It's definitely going to run better like this. Now, the assembly is pretty much done, well, with the exception of the throttle body, some sort of air cleaner or filter system, and then of course the accessories. But I've got a solution on the way. Yep, Holley had that too. Go figure. It's a low mount charger whirler, PS, go left, go right machine, belt, wheelie, tensioner, bolt configuration kit. A couple days that'll be here, and that's where we're going to pick up next, is finishing up all the accessories, getting the throttle body on, throttle body bracket. We got to get a throttle cable in this. We've got to finish the ignition system, and of course the tiger in the room. Sorry about that. We've got to put the Terminator X in. We've got to mount the computer, do all of the wiring, get everything tied in, load this thing with the tune, and inch ourselves closer to firing this thing up in its new configuration. And of course, there's much more to come with the trunk and interior and shaking it down and tuning as well. But stay tuned, that's all coming up next. Thanks guys for watching, appreciate you very much. And do not forget, you could enter for a chance to win this beautiful Nova and $15,000 cash. All you've got to do is go to vicegripgarage.com and pick up any merchandise that you want. And every $5 you spend gets you one entry for a chance to win this beautiful car. I am so excited for one of you to own this thing. It is just, I'm happy for you. Thanks guys, see you next time.